Welcome to This Explainer. Grab a whiteboard marker and pull up a chair, because today we're going behind the scenes. I'm putting on my senior tech lead hat to give you a pragmatic, totally no-nonsense coaching session on what is easily the most intimidating hurdle in tech hiring, the system design interview. Look, these interviews are notorious for feeling chaotic, right? Totally open-ended. But today, we're going to completely reframe how you approach them. I want to hit you right out of the gate with a harsh truth. The absolute fastest way to fail a system design interview is to march straight up to that whiteboard and start drawing database cylinders and load balancer boxes before you actually know what problem you're solving. It's literally the biggest trap candidates fall into. They want to show off their technical chops so badly that they completely miss the actual point of the exercise.
So, here is our survival framework. We're going to start with the ambiguity trap. Then, we'll walk through a four-step process, scoping the problem, building a high-level blueprint, tackling the technical deep dive, and gracefully wrapping it up. Finally, we'll tie it all together with the overarching mindset you need, the engineering conversation.
Let's start with the ambiguity trap, and why this whole thing feels so intentionally vague. You're probably sitting there thinking, come on, how can anyone design a massive product like YouTube in 45 minutes? Well, the answer is, they don't expect you to. They are simulating real-world ambiguity to see exactly how you collaborate on a messy problem that has no perfect answer.
While you're sweating bullets at the whiteboard, the interviewer isn't just looking for technical brilliance. They are actively hunting for behavioral red flags. Jumping to solutions prematurely, big red flag. Over-engineering just for the sake of design purity while ignoring practical trade-offs? Nope. They're watching for stubbornness. They're watching for candidates who retreat into 5 minutes of silent thinking, and if you ignore their feedback, well, you just failed the collaboration test.
Which brings us to step 1, scope the problem. Or, as I like to say, ask before you architect. You know that kid in the back of the class who yells out an answer before hearing the whole question? Yeah, you do not want to be the engineer who assumes they know the requirements. You have to aggressively clarify the target.
And you've got to do this efficiently. Timebox this. You have exactly 3 to 10 minutes out of your 45-minute slot to establish the design scope. Time management is absolutely essential here. Spend too little time, and you end up building the completely wrong thing. Spend too much time, and you literally won't have time to design the actual system.
Imagine you're asked to design a news feed system. Here is the kind of rapid back-and-forth dialogue you should be initiating. Okay, is this a mobile app, web, or both? What's our daily traffic volume? Can the feed contain heavy media files like images and video, or are we just doing text? How many friends can a user realistically have? You are purposefully extracting the system's constraints right out of the interviewer.
So the crucial move here is that once you extract those answers, you lock them in. Literally write these assumptions down on the board like requirement cards. Documenting that, hey, we're optimizing for 10 million daily active users with support for video and a hard cap of 5,000 friends per user, that proves you're methodical. It sets the guardrails for every single architectural decision you're about to make.
Okay, step 2, the high-level blueprint. Draw simple boxes and get buy-in. At this stage, you need to treat your interviewer as a teammate, not some adversary grading a test. Sketch out an initial layout and immediately ask for feedback to make sure you're both rowing in the same direction.
You should allocate roughly 10 to 15 minutes for this phase. That gives you enough runway to get the basic skeleton of the system up on the board, walk through the core flows, and do some quick back-of-the-envelope math just to verify your design won't immediately collapse under the scale constraints you just gathered. Keep it stupid simple at first. Draw the core components, your mobile clients, load balancers routing traffic to your web servers, your basic data stores and caches. Then actually walk a piece of data through the system. For that newsfeed, trace the exact path of a user publishing a post, and then trace the path of a user retrieving their feed. Please do not get bogged down in granular database schemas or REST API endpoints just yet, unless the interviewer specifically asks for them.
Now for the fun part. Step 3, the deep dive. This is where you identify the highest signal components. Once you have that blueprint approved, this is where you prove your worth as a senior engineer. You aren't going to talk about everything. You and the interviewer are going to pinpoint and tackle the absolute riskiest, most complex parts of the architecture. This is the absolute meat of the interview, taking up a solid 10 to 25 minutes of your time. This is your moment to shine. It's where you bring out your knowledge of system performance characteristics, bottlenecks, and the really intricate trade-offs between different technologies.
But listen, you've got to be strategic. Wasting 10 minutes debating the intricacies of Facebook's EdgeRank algorithm or defining totally standard API endpoints?
Yeah, that's low signal. It doesn't prove you can build scalable infrastructure. Instead, focus entirely on high-signal components. If it's a URL shortener, dive deep into the hash generation function. If it's a chat app, dissect exactly how you'll minimize latency and track online status at massive scale.
Which brings us to step 4, wrap up. Time to critique your own design. Look, the hallmark of a junior engineer is thinking their design is flawless. The hallmark of a senior engineer is knowing exactly where their design is eventually going to break.
You must strictly reserve the last 3 to 5 minutes of the session for this. If you are still frantically drawing boxes when the interviewer says, "All right, we're out of time," you've just missed a massive opportunity to demonstrate your foresight and maturity.
Run through this mental wrap-up checklist. Look at the system and point out the glaring bottlenecks. Discuss what happens when, not if, but when, a database node fails or the network drops. Mention the operational realities. How are you monitoring metrics, logging errors, and safely rolling this thing out? And most importantly, discuss the next scale curve. If this currently handles 1 million users, what explicitly breaks when we hit 10 million? And whatever you do, never, ever claim the design is perfect.
All right, bringing it all together, the engineering conversation. Let's summarize these survival tactics. To really thrive in these interviews, you have to fundamentally shift your mindset. You aren't taking a standardized test. You're participating in a collaborative problem-solving session with a future colleague. Here are your non-negotiable do's. Clarify absolutely everything and communicate your thought process out loud constantly. Don't just give one static answer. Suggest multiple approaches and weigh their trade-offs against each other. Tackle the critical, high-risk components first. Treat the interviewer like a peer. Bounce your ideas off them. And if you get stuck on a really tough scaling problem, never give up. Keep reasoning through it out loud.
Conversely, here are the absolute deal breakers that will tank your session. Do not jump in blindly without scoping the problem first. Do not get bogged down in micro details way too early on. Do not retreat into silent thinking for 5 minutes and leave the room completely dead quiet. If the interviewer gives you a hint or pushes back on an idea, do not ignore it. And never treat your initial rough whiteboard sketch as the infallible final answer.
If you remember only one thing from this explainer, let it be this. Let it burn into your memory. A strong system design interview is a guided engineering conversation. You clarify the target to remove the ambiguity, you collaboratively sketch out the system, you dive deep into the risky technical weeds, and then you maturely critique your own design. Shift your mindset from trying to solve some rigid trivia puzzle to showcasing exactly how you work on a team.
So, are you ready to stop drawing random boxes and start actually collaborating? Next, we apply this style to a concrete system, designing a rate limiter.